Back to Educator.com's AP English Language and Composition course. This lesson is on how to read and interpret a passage. Let's get started. All right, we begin as always with an overview of the lesson. We're going to talk about the importance of reading for the big picture instead of immediately jumping into the details. Then we're going to talk about what to look for when you read. We're going to talk about hunting for details, how to answer the detail questions when you get to them. And then we're going to do some final tips on how to survive this section of the test. All right, to begin with, read for the big picture. When you first read the passage, and if you saw our last lesson, you know you read the passage before you read the questions, look for the big idea, the main idea, the gist of the passage. That means you concentrate on the important events of the passage, if any. If it's a narrative, talk about the big stuff that happens. The major topics being discussed, things that the author seems to go on and on about. The people or characters who appear most. And finally, the arc or storyline of the passage. If the whole passage seems to be one long story or one long arc, you want to look at that because that's a big piece of the big picture. Now, something to watch out for. Big picture questions often come at the beginning of each set of questions, but also at the end. Okay, so if you're looking at a question that's number 1 or 2 or one of the last couple in a section, you are probably being asked about the big picture. So what do big picture questions actually ask for? What are we looking for? Well, begin by looking for the author's goal as you read the passage. Why was this passage written? Now, how do you find the goal? How do you find why they wrote? It's not like there's a little footnote saying, this is why I wrote this. Well, you look at topic sentences, sentences at the beginnings of paragraphs, sentences that kick things off and seem to be main ideas. Also look at concluding statements. Very often the passage you are given will either have a twist or it will have a summing up at the end that will tell you the main idea. So watch for that. Look at the ideas that get the most attention in the text. Okay, look at the things that the author spends the most time on. That's a clue to the main idea and to the goal. And finally, look for imperative statements, commands or orders, you must do this, or implied advice. If it really seems like the author is kind of hinting around that you should do something, well then his goal in writing is probably to get you to do it. All right, then you look for tone. What effect does this passage have on its audience? Remember, tone is more about the sound of the writing and sort of the feeling that it gives you. So this is a little more wishy-washy, but there are still tips. First, look at word choice. If the author had a choice between 2 or more words and he chose a particular word, why did he use that verb? Why did he use that adjective? Of all the words he could have picked out of his head, why that one? Different word choices mean different things. Is the word positive or negative? Is it long or short? Does it refer to a particular language? Is it an allusion to something? All of those things will tell you why he chose the words he did. Finally, secondarily, look at metaphors and allusions. If he's using analogies, if he's saying that, oh, this is a this, or he's alluding to classical literature or other works in culture. Look at that kind of thing. That tells you the tone that he's trying to establish. Somebody who refers to a Hollywood blockbuster is different from someone who refers to the Iliad. That tells you tone. Then look at pacing. Does the passage move along really quickly? Is it kind of slow and ponderous? Are the paragraphs long or short? Are the sentences long or short? Does he use a lot of exclamation points? Does he use semicolons and sentences that go on forever? All of that will tell you tone. And finally, look at your own reactions. Remember, the point of tone is to create a response in the reader. And if you're the kind of reader who likes to read and gets a lot out of reading, chances are you will be getting a little bit of a reaction to the author's tone. So if you're reading it, you're going, hey, I'm feeling kind of sad, or I'm feeling kind of happy, or I'm getting kind of angry about this. That probably tells you tone, because after all, most of the authors whose passages are selected for this test were selected because they're good at getting a reaction out of readers. All right, now we look for point of view. You will probably have to answer questions about that, so ask yourself, what does the author think about the subject being discussed? Does he or she have an opinion on this? So look at the use of language. Sorry, this is that old look at the vocabulary thing in disguise. Again, if he has a choice between 2 or more words, a positive word and a negative one, ask yourself, why did he choose this one? Look at the focus of the discussion. Look at the stuff that gets the most screen time or the most word time, I guess. Look for direct statements of opinion. If he says, I think, or I believe, or it is clear that, well, then they just handed you point of view on a silver platter. And finally, look for twists. This is very common in satirical writing, where the author is making fun of something, and you get to the end and he just kind of sticks the knife in and twists it, and you're like, oh, that was where he was going. So look for twists at the end, look for sudden changes, because chances are that's where the author was going all along, and that will tell you point of view, all of which contributes to the big picture.